Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the very first look at the Herald of the Sun hero talents that are going to be coming out in the War Within. And this affects Holy and Retribution Paladin. I'm going to be talking about it from the Retribution Paladin side. Of course, it's worth pointing out that we don't know what's going to be strong, what's not going to be strong. We just know something's like passive, if something's cool, like sounds cool, things like that, right? And so we're going to be going through and taking our very first look at this. I've already read through both Herald of the Sun and Templar before making videos, but we'll go through this again, kind of in a live setting, and kind of talk about it now that I've already kind of read through it and had some thoughts. So Herald of the Sun, the main ability here is Sunspot. I do not like this name, and we'll talk about that. We'll focus on the ret, but we can read the holy part. Holy Prism causes your next two holy power spending abilities to create a sunspot, dealing radiant damage or healing over 8 seconds. Wake of Ashes causes your next two holy power spending abilities to create a sunspot on your target, dealing radiant damage or healing over 8 seconds. So basically the same thing, just different abilities doing it. 10% of sunspot's damage and healing radiates to nearby allies or enemies, reduced beyond 5 players. So it is a way for Retribution Paladins to do some passive healing to your group. So I like that idea. Now, what I'm confused about with Sunspot, and maybe it's only me that's confused by this, but when I first read it, I thought Sunspot would be kind of like a dot, the way that they're saying it. But after thinking about it more, and then also seeing some other people think their thoughts on it, it sounds like it's almost like a consecration on the ground, right? That's obviously going to cause a lot of issues if that is the case, as far as keeping the enemy or enemies in it. So yeah, it's like, depending on if it's a dot, then it's kind of fine. If it's a little spot on the ground, that's going to be very difficult. That might be very difficult to play around. We'll see which one it is and how bad it, or how good or bad it is. But I also just really quick want to talk about the name Sunspot. I get it. They're going for this whole entire thing is like burning, right? Herald of the Sun is about burning. There's a lot of radiant damage, burning damage, as we'll go on through this tree here. But sunspots have a lot. I could be wrong. I'm not a scientist, but I believe sunspots have a lot to do with like magnetic fields and stuff like that. And so I just don't know. I mean, I get it, because if it's and then this makes it make more sense if it's a consecration type ability, right? Is it's a little spot on the sun or on a star, and I believe that the magnetic field is very strong in that area. So I mean, that could be them just making fun of us in that it supposedly has a strong magnetic field, but everything's going to be pulled out of it. I don't know. But yeah, the name's a little weird to me. There's some funny things you can think about with the name though, and yeah, I'm not gonna hate something just because of the name, but it's not my favorite name for sure. So let's go ahead and move to the second row for Herald of the Sun. We'll start. We'll just go left to right here. Let me make sure you guys can see it. All right, Morning Star. Every 5 seconds, your next sunspot damage or healing is increased by 5%. Okay, this definitely makes me think it's on the ground now that I'm just thinking about it more and more. So yeah, let's assume for the rest of this video that sunspots are like mini consecrations on the ground. I guess it doesn't have to be mini, it could be big. Every 5 seconds, your sunspot's damage or healing is increased by 5%, stacking up to 10 times. Morning Star stacks twice as fast while out of combat. Morning Star stacks twice as fast while out of combat. Oh, your next sunspot damage. So your very first sunspot damage, like tick of it or whatever, is going to be high, basically. And then the Gleaming Rays, I believe this is a choice node. While a sunspot is active, your holy power spenders deal 10% increased damage. That's just passive. So it depends do you want to focus on the sunspot, or do you want to just do holy power spenders 10% more. Eternal Flame, it replaces Word of Glory. This actually sounds cool, at least. Heals an ally immediately and over an additional 20 seconds, and healing's increased by 25% when cast on yourself. It's probably going to look, my guess is it will have a better animation, would be my guess. Luminosity, critical strike chance of Holy Shotgun and Light of Dawn, increased by 10% for Holy. And for Ret, it's Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm, increased by 10%. And you'll notice here, when we are in this Herald of the Sun, that it's a little bit more AoE focused. And when we get to the Templar one, it's actually a little bit more single target focused. So you can kind of keep that in your head as we go through these as well. Let's go ahead and go to the next row. Again, nothing, that's just passive damage there. Next row, gosh, I don't know how to pronounce this. Illumine. Sunspots reduce the movement speed of enemies by 50% and increase the movement speed of allies. Okay, so this might be a way to keep something in your sunspots. You just don't let them move. So you might have to take that. This is a choice node. Movement speed increased by 5% while above 80% health. When your health is brought below 35%, your movement speed is increased by 40% for 5 seconds. Cannot occur more than once every 60 seconds. 5%, movement speed by 5% over 80. I mean, that's not that much. But, I mean, honestly, if you're doing the sunspot thing anyways, it might just have to be the Illumine just to keep everything in them because they can't move. And that can be helpful for other things too. It can be helpful for Spiteful, right? Things like that. Sunspots, Eternal Sun. Sunspots duration is increased by 2 seconds, and Eternal Flames duration is increased by 3 seconds. So that's the heal on yourself, and then of course the sunspot. Lingering Radiant Sunspots leave an eternal flame for 12 seconds on allies or a greater judgment on enemies when they expire or are extended. Okay, so just kind of like a passive way to put your judgment up for. I think this is probably a little bit better for Holy than Ret. Doesn't seem too interesting for Ret. Holy Shock, Sunseer. For Holy, it's Holy Shock and Light of Dawn. Critical strikes cause the target to burn. Additional radiant damage over 4 seconds or be healed over 4 seconds. So a hot or a dot. Again, that's what this whole thing is about, is like burning. Retribution, Hammer of Wrath, and Divine Storm. Again, same 2 spells. Critical strike cause the target to burn for additional radiant damage. So more burning damage, more fire damage there. Next row, Aurora. After you cast Holy Prism, gain Divine Purpose. After you cast Wake of Ashes, gain Divine Purpose. Divine Purpose is the free spender, basically, right? So that's what Aurora does. It gives you, now it doesn't give you the talent, I don't believe, right? It gives you a free cast. I don't know why that's all I can think. That's what Divine Purpose is, right? Divine Purpose is the talent on the Paladin side that 15% chance to get a free spender, right? Unless I'm out of my mind. That's what I'm taking that as. Solar Grace. Your haste is increased by 4% for 12 seconds each time you apply a sunspot. Multiple stacks may overlap, so you can have a lot of haste. Second Sunrise. Holy Shock, Light of Dawn. Have a 50% chance to gain cast again at 30% effectiveness. So that's very similar to the Divine Purpose. And then Ret, it's Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm. Have a chance to cast again. Again, that's really good for AoE, right? Sun's Avatar. This actually sounds cool. So some of the stuff I've liked, some of the stuff I haven't liked so far. This actually sounds cool. Sun's Avatar. During Avenging Wrath, you become linked to your sunspots. So all the spots you've left on the ground, you're linked to, and there's like lines, and that's what I'm guessing here. Causing radiant damage to enemies or healing to allies that pass through the beams. Reduced beyond 5 targets. Activating Avenging Wrath applies 4 sunspots onto nearby allies or enemies and increases sunspot damage and healing by 20%. So when you pull a pack of mobs or whatever, you pop Avenging Wrath. It's going to put sunspots on multiple of them. And I thought it said something about lines, but maybe not. Maybe I was wrong on that. Radiant damage to enemies or healing allies that pass through the beams. Yeah, the beams. So it's going to put the sunspots on the ground. You're going to have a beam connecting you. And there's a DK ability, I believe, with their pet that has like a red beam. And like when stuff passes through it takes a lot of damage. It's probably going to be like that, which is a little bit weird and finicky, to be completely honest. But the idea of this is at least kind of cool and interesting. And yeah, it's a lot of AoE damage. From just kind of a spoiler before we get to the Templar video, I'll do a separate video for Templar. This is going to be, the way they have it set up now, this is going to be the AoE spec. So when you're doing Mythic Plus, or you're doing like a council fight in a raid, you're going to be doing Herald of the Sun. So if that is their set plan on this, then that's probably the way we should be viewing the feedback. You know, obviously we can do more feedback when we can actually play with it, but for now, the way we should probably be doing the feedback is that of, you know, this is going to be our AoE set. So what's going to make this better for Mythic Plus dungeons? What's going to make it better on a council fight? Things like that. So, of course, you know, the reality is maybe the single target one's so bad that even the AoE one is better for single target. That's possible. But I think that's the way we should kind of think about it when we give our feedback. So overall, I don't like the name Sunspot, but it is what it is. Like, sunspots are cool, like strong gravitational pulse, but you know, whatever. I can get over that. But more concerning is, how big are they on the ground, and like, are you actually getting use out of them? Because this entire thing is set around sunspots. So if you're not actually getting use out of them, that can be a little bit rough, right? Like, don't move anything, I got my sunspots down. That's going to be a strange thing to say, I think. So yeah, that's it for this first look at Herald of the Sun, Holy Retribution Paladin. This is the Wowhead mock-up of the talents. Obviously, this isn't an actual talent thing, as you can see. So shout out to Wowhead too. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot. And I'm going to get this video loaded and work on the Templar one.